I'm Sarah Jensen, editor of OEM Off Highway, and welcome to Design and Engineering Insights. Today I'll be speaking with Mike Gomes, Vice President of Business Development at Topcon Agriculture, about current industry trends the company is seeing within the heavy-duty equipment industry. So thank you, Mike, for joining me today.
No problem. Thanks very much for having us.
Yeah. So we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has had quite a lot of effects on, just the world in general and the heavy equipment industry, and, several challenges, but have Topcon seen any potential for opportunities for change or within either the company or the industry that has been brought about from everything that's been going on this year?
Well, 2020 is certainly one that we're all certainly eager to move past. But there have been some real positive opportunities that have come out of what we'll call our COVID experience. And so probably one of the biggest ones that we've seen from both our customers as well as distribution has been around the idea that customers are really adapting to the need for distance tools. Being able to interact with the machine, right? The machines have always been smart and connected with a lot of different sensors and things, but now it's being able to really interact with those or being able to add value through services from those sensors. And so probably the single biggest one that we've seen is the ability to use tools like our remote support tool or the ability to interact with data layers from the machines. We've talked about how over the past years, they've become smart and connected, but now people are, particularly through COVID, they're having to begin to interact with those things or begin to utilize those tools. Probably one of the better quotes I heard was that COVID did more to move organizations forward with respect to the adoption of digital tools more so than any CEO or CTO ever could, because it's out of necessity, right? Customers are now beginning to order products remotely, seeds, fertilizers, things like that, and customers are beginning to interact with the machines. So tools like remote support, and increasingly it's being able to get the data layers from the machine and then understand what those things mean. And so increasingly, that also relates to the importance of rural broadband connectivity and the ability for the machine to be connected. Because one of the biggest things that we've seen is as our industry sectors have transferred to tools of distance, right? As our schools have gone to distance learning and hospitals are increasingly utilizing telemedicine, it's becoming very, very apparent that rural America is in need of improvements in broadband, or people are beginning to understand what broadband connectivity means, what it means to them, where it works, where it doesn't. And Topcon, it has been doing quite a bit in that respect. One of the things that we've been doing is that we're a member of the American Connection Project Broadband Coalition, which is a group of telemedicine. It's a group of stakeholders from healthcare as well as education and also agriculture, really to put a focus specifically on where on the challenge of rural broadband connectivity and then opportunities for improvement, things like that. That's one of our significant efforts this year, as we're continuing to work to help customers get and interact with these kind of tools.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well then, are there any sort of long-lasting effects you guys think the pandemic might have on the industry or maybe the agriculture industry specifically? Or is it kind of too soon to tell? Or
Well, I would say that probably one of the biggest things that we see through this process has been that people are beginning to use the tools, and that those things are sticky. They'll stick with us, right? And so it's the idea that people are beginning to use and interact with the data layers. They're beginning to understand how to send files to and from the machine. They're beginning to do more and more of those kinds of things. And so, what do we see? What do we think will stick from COVID and from 2020? We think that a number of those types of advances, right, are here to stay. Right, the idea that more and more of this connectivity, being able to interact with the data layers, and then being able to understand or utilize those data layers with downstream capabilities for farms. For farms or even first stage processors to be able to interact with those data layers. And so, for example, with us, with our, our smart tillage equipment, being able to get a data layer of the tillage depth of the implements. With the NORAC boom height control systems, it's being able to understand the height of the crop in addition to the height of the ground. And then every time we're coming through the field, being able to capture that data layer and then be able to understand what that data layer means agronomically. Right now it's harvest season, and so the idea of the smart connected grain cart and being able to obsolete the paper and pencil by capturing the data and then being able to store it in a cloud-based repository so that then it's safe and referenceable, and then it's easily accessible to be able to be shared, are all certain key themes that we see as really items that people are becoming more and more adapted to using. And once acquired, those, that's probably one of the best things about progress is that once people move forward, they rarely ever go back, right? And so we see a number of those kinds of things certainly moving into the industry.
Okay. And so what impacts, getting into more some of the general industry trends, do you guys maybe see automation playing in the heavy equipment industries, or again, the agriculture industry specifically?
Right. So we've talked a lot about smart connected equipment, and then really the ability for that equipment to interoperate in the workflow. The idea of being able to understand that's probably one of the single hardest things is that a number of your readers develop up fantastic solutions for vehicle platforms or for implements, and in many cases those solutions then are increasingly having to interact with other pieces, right? So from the farmer's perspective, it's not just the smart planter as well as the smart tractor, but then really what does that mean with respect to his fertilization or his spraying program or some of those kinds of things. And so one of the things that we work on is because we make a number of the sensors, but being able to work with not just the sensors, but also the data layers and being able to interoperate with those pieces of equipment. And so we see more of those types of things increasingly being important. And so from our OEM customers, we see, strong strengths towards automation. Tools like tillage are becoming smart. Tools like sprayers that have always been smart are increasingly becoming connected and becoming data layers, and tools like combines and grain cart, where you have two different data layers, now are coming together in a cloud-based form so that then users can use them not just on the farm, but also for downstream for their trusted advisor, or maybe into next year's planting program, or being able to reference those data layers long term.
Okay. And so is there anything you guys foresee as sort of the next big thing in automation or smart systems, or are there any sort of maybe technologies that are still needed to help further advance those types of systems?
I would say probably, as a competitive member of the industry, we're always working to continuously improve and continuously drive. I would say probably the single biggest challenge we see coming out of COVID is really a little bit of that, about that broadband, right? About understanding rural broadband connectivity. One of the items that I've been fortunate enough was part of the Farm Bill of 2018. Congress actually mandated a federal task force around the importance of connectivity. and understanding the needs of the industry for connectivity. And so that's one of the opportunities that I've gotten over the past year, is really beginning to understand what challenges we have for connectivity here in the United States, and then where the opportunities are for that improvement. And so for us, one of the big things, we're always making increasingly smart and connected equipment, but it's the need, back to your question, it's the need for infrastructure. Really, it's understanding where the opportunities are to improve, and really what's that mean for the customers, whether that means, what's that mean for farms and farm contractors, or what does that mean for equipment dealers, or seed and protection product dealers, and increasingly, what does that mean for many of your OEM customers, because they're devising those solutions and then beginning to bring those to those equipment dealers that are then serving those farmers. And so it's more of that interconnectivity and how people are using the connectivity. That for me is really the big piece of the challenge of where people are going, and where the biggest challenge of our industry today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today and provide your insights on what you guys are seeing currently in the industry and going forward.
Sure thing. Thanks very much. We really appreciate the opportunity, and are always happy to talk about the future of equipment with OEM off highway. That's one of our favorite subjects.